welcome to my channel. My name is Lizzie. Welcome to the second, before I get into this, so I figured out why there's so many orbs here. First of all, I'm a psychic medium. Every time I record in my apartment, there's going to be mad orbs. This building is haunted AF. Multiple levels of history. There's like 5 or 6 other buildings just like it all around me with multiple levels. It's like a development of apartment buildings. We're private, away from everybody. We have our own pool and playgrounds and like grill where you can bring your family. Like, it's a really nice place. But it has a lot of history, a lot of Native American history. I'm training with Native Americans to be a shaman. I feel like they are sensing that shit. And also, I feel like they've been pushing all the bad ones. Because they're like, oh, we got an exterminator on the first floor. We can get rid of these motherfuckers. And slowly, I've had to evict a few. They've been affecting me in my sleep because I'm vulnerable. Headaches. I honestly had all those weird spider things. I've had like weird sicknesses. Like, it all makes sense. I'm like slowly weeding out the yucky ones that try me. Anyway, if you want to cut to the story now, before you do, all I ask of you is I would like to carry this series on into the Thanksgiving spirit and do a couple like family themed with tarot like I did for Halloween. Instead of doing scary, we'll do like Thanksgiving types of stuff. I could go back to like Pilgrim days. I could just make up like Hallmark type of stuff and follow through into the Christmas season. If you would like to see that, please let me know by hitting the thumbs up or telling me in the comments like, yeah, I want holiday stories, and I will continue. I'll probably try a few in Thanksgiving to see how it goes, just so you can get like a sample of what I mean. So if you want to wait and vote on that one, that's okay, because maybe you don't know if you're going to like it. So I'll do a couple Thanksgiving ones. If you guys like it, I'll follow through November, and then for December I'll do a couple Christmas ones and see if you like it, and we'll go from there. I just like doing this. So this will definitely come back next year, the Spooktacular Scary Stories. I had a lot of fun. I wish I could have done more. I wish I didn't get hit with COVID. I lost 2 weeks of these stories. And this weekend turned out to be so, oh my god. I'm just happy to get these out to you because you'll have them the day before Halloween and all of Halloween to watch these. So I also, description box below if you want to cut to the story. I just wanted you to hear about the holiday stuff. It's time-stamped. If you want to continue on, I'll show you the cards that I drew and the setup, and we go through my, how I do this type of spiel. If you are into creative writing and you want to challenge yourself and you have tarot cards, you can use anything really. That's why I do this, so you can see how it's done just for fun. If not, see you at the story. Ta-ta for now. Anyway, also, I'm sorry I'm testing pop-on nails again for a review for my page. So they're longer than I would, but they're not the like extremely long ones. It's like a happy medium, but still, I feel weird. That's why I keep doing this. I don't wear fake nails. I just paint my nails. But look, I do not. I'm not flipping you off, collective, and you can't see it anyway. But the glue, because they're see-through, there's like a white cloud on it. Epic fail on the design. Anyway, this is a tale of whodunit, a charity ball or a charity events gone wrong. It's like a serial killer type of thing. We're calling this one the charity killer. So, these are the characters and how I'm piecing it together. I'm just going to go sporadically all over and tell you each character. So the first card I drew was the word Lord, and I instantly thought, oh, old writer, like a scholar, public speaker. And I shit you not, all these came out. Spiritual teacher, author, speaker, like spirit's backing me up, like, yes, this is somebody in town for an event, or for a charity event in our case, who's like a guru type of guy coming to speak about either their book or promote their book. But we have teach and share, tune in, connect, and begin writing now. So I feel like he's also, it's like he's in town at this charity event promoting his work, but he's also like writing a new one and is talking about that. I kind of feel like his book maybe went a little like a discount speaker at a charity event. Like, he's well known enough to get the crowd in, but you don't have to pay him too much. Like, he's trying to get his name back out there, so he's out there to like promote. But teach and share is like guru. I'm like, okay, so this is a victim. Remember, all these charity events are going to happen. There's going to be victims at each one. So, oh my God, the headliner, it's found dead. And all of these people are found like the day after the event and not at the event, but they're all associated to the event itself. Like, they attended, they had tickets, and they were found on the property, usually at dawn. So this guy, we named him Jeffrey Reed. He's in town at a charity event for his guru stuff, probably something like new age, like crystals and sound healing and like how to be zen type of an event. So he turns out to have a connection to the main suspect, which all these do, and I'm going to be telling the story as if it's like Dateline, NBC, or like 60 Minutes special. Like, this takes place as breaking news, like it's crashing into people's TV. Like, we are the first to cut the true story. Like, the public knows about all these deaths, and they know that they have an arrest and a trial's going, but the trial is held private because of all the like money and the famous people involved. So the public is like anxiously waiting for the full tea. So I'm gonna be like the reporter, but not like the morning news reporter. It's more like night news, laid back, like like a true crime reporters, like give their opinions a bit sassy. Not like, hi, welcome to such and such news. Good morning. The weather is, not one of those. Not that type. But, so yeah, one of the victims is Jeffrey Reed, the main head speaker for the event. He ends up, I guess I should start with the suspect. This is what I got for him, the Metal King. But anyway, his details, just so you know a little bit, he's like a mafia guy, like legit. Like, his dad was a made man and he's now a made man. But it's not like he just does mafia. Like, he is a land developer and he has a construction company, and he is buying up all these cheap bankrupted properties, and he's like taking over the city money wise. He's becoming like a Trump. He's got money, he's got power, and so this is the lead suspect. He's not a very well liked guy and respected community because of his history, but he's very protected because his dad was a made man. Now he grew up in the mob. They're all protecting him. So the leader, because that's what I got for him, like leadership. So I instantly felt, all right, mob boss. Definitely felt with the Metal King. Like, look at him. He's like a baddie. He's not a goodie. So then it says, enjoy new beginnings, re-energize your life, and go after your goals. I feel like he's an evil SOB because his father, who was a made man, like suspiciously died, and everybody suspects him of killing his father for power and yeah, that's what pretty much what happens. So he's like taking power back, like, how dare you question me, I'll fucking kill you. So not only is he taking over the city, but he's like in this power shift. And so there's like an undertone of he's being framed. People are turning on him because they're finding out about his father. They just don't want him in charge. But anyway, his name is Alfonso Santiago, but in the story he's called Fonzie. Shout out to the real Fonzie out there. Like I said, he's buying up land, developing the city, so people are pissed because he's taking over and like making all this money, and they're jealous, you know. Nobody likes Trump. He's got a mouth, so does this guy. And, you know, he's also a known made man. Like, the cops can't prove it, but everybody knows it type of shit. Like, he had blood money, he has dirty money, like, he's done shit. He's not an innocent guy. He still does shit. He's now the leader, suspected of killing his father. So, like, yeah, he's 2 years into his reign from his father, and, like, he's a scary dude. Like, as much as people want to take him out, he's still, like, scared. He's got that scare factor. So he's the number one suspect by the police, the city, everybody. So, the connection here, Jeffrey Reed ended up, like, after he dies and stuff, I'm going to say that it is, like, shocking turn events that Jeffrey Reed in the beginning of his book sales, you know, a couple years ago, before Fonzie's father died and he was trying to get his own empire off the ground, Jeffrey Reed had loaned him a large sum of money so that his father, the main like mob guy, wouldn't know what he was doing. So there was like a connection that maybe either Jeffrey owed him money, or now that he was the king of the city, he didn't want anyone to be like, I made you, or be able to tell the story of, you know, how he kind of tried to make it before and failed. So that could be why he died, Jeffrey. So now I got the Sacred Union, so I'm like, ooh, lovers found dead. Not just 1, 2 this time with my gory brains in there. But anyway, we have the Eagle King and the Queen of Light. So this is like a it couple, you know, grew up well groomed, fashionable. People like probably had a social media presence. Give love, very in love, initiating their love, newlyweds. And then I got interact and relate, family connections, and answer the call. So I made them the mayor's son and his new bride. So this is like a power move. So obviously this is a charity event that the mayor and his wife and his family is there, and the next morning his son and his new bride are found dead. Did the mayor have something to do with it? Does Alfonso have something to do with it? The plot thickens, but they're details of the lovers. The lovers found dead on one of the charity events, also hosted by the mayor, like I said, found in the tree line. Okay, so this is the one, I couldn't remember which one was which. It's coming up. These two, like the charity event was an Airbnb in upstate New York, like really pretty during fall. These charity events are spaced out over a year, by the way, through the story. It's like there's a killing every season of charity events. So there's like a build up in the story of whose charity event is going to get hit every season. So it's like a build up of like who done it, but also like do we have enough security? Like, should we go to these events? Like, anyway, but back to this lovers. So they're at the event, everything's seemingly going well. The couple is seen leaving and then they're never seen again. So it's like very mysterious. But the mayor and Alfonso are beefing because obviously the mayor doesn't want blood money buying up the city, and is trying to help and work with the police to take Alfonso down. So they feel like Alfonso was like warning him if he doesn't lay off that he's going to whack his family. So there's that connection. Moving on, just to keep this short, we have The Wise Woman of Wonderland I drawn, and I immediately felt like a teacher, like a warm, sweet person, and then I got healer and counselor. So, and then I got listening to wisdom, take time out. Oh wait, this is the psychiatrist, never mind. That one's next. Sorry. Clear your mind and whole self-help. So this is like Tony Soprano. I got this idea from the show. This is like Alfonso's shrink. So he goes in and he is like getting stuff off his chest, but she's also connected to the mayor. She does like marriage counseling for the mayor and his wife, and she also counsels some of the other people in the story. Like, she's kind of at the center of it all. So although she's not an official suspect, it's like they're like, she knows more than she's letting on, and she's known to be testifying at court. So they're like, what is she saying in there? So she's got a celebrity moment going on just because she's so connected with it all. But her name is Lola Peters. She, like I said, a shrink to Fonzie, and is rumored to be involved in some of the connections to the other killers. Like, did they plot it in their time together? Because she just seems to be in the center of it all, and would be able to tell Fonzie details from their sessions. So these two kind of go together. So I'm going to say this. So these are two women who married wives, lesbian couple. One is found dead and one is alive. They both attend this LGBTQ event. So this one is like considered to be like a hate crime because Alfonso and his big mouth, he's always like a bigot and a racist, and the thing he hates most is like anyone in the LGBTQ. So they're like, oh, Alfonso's like making a strike against us. So the one that lived over here is now on a rise up in the city for backing to attack Alfonso and his mob, or just riot in the streets, pretty much. So we have the River Queen. This is the one that was found in the river. Her wife, the science teacher. And like I said, I touched it and I felt teacher and then teaching came out and go with the flow. And I was like, oh, science teacher, like a naturalist. And environmentalist came out. So that, I feel like spirit was like backing me up for science. But this is somebody who like recycles and is into building solar panels and works in not only in the LGBTQ clubs, but she has like Save the Environment clubs, and she's beloved by her students. So this one is very sad and tragic, and it's a little baffling because she's not like a vicious activist, but her wife is. And so there's a question that maybe Alfonso was trying to silence her wife, and maybe killed the wrong one, or maybe killed to hurt her, to get her to be quiet. But anyway, her wife, I had the spirit whisper, the sun and stars, and I was like, okay, so we got a psychic here, and then trust came out, and then hex and banishment, and the familiar card, connect with past loved ones, spirit guides, and psychic strength. So she does tarot cards. She is like the local town paranormal investigator witch. She doesn't have a shop or anything. She's just known to run the paranormal investigation, and is now becoming the private investigator to prove that Alfonso killed her wife. what happened at the event was, by the way, their names are Harper Henson is the science teacher that's found killed in the river, and Tara Henson is her wife, the activist, the local ghost hunter president of the club, community, whatever you want to call it. So you have now the LGBTQ community feeling like this is a hate crime coming for Alfonso, and then you have all the like investigators, like occult witches in the area also rising up against Alfonso. So this is going to be a juicy one. And again, we're calling it the Charity Killer. So I will see you at the story. Hope you like the setup. See you soon. I need a drink first. Not like an alcoholic one, just like a regular drink. Good evening. My name is Lizzie. Sorry for interjecting your programs, but and I have the much anticipated full report on the murders from last year's charity season that took place in the fall of 2021, following through to the spring of 2021. The trial was completed yesterday at 10 a.m. and we have not heard anything out of either side until now. I'm going to take you back to the very beginning in order to understand what really went on, who did it, where it all fits. We have to start from the very first murder, which took place during the fall season. This was down at the old shipyard on the Hudson River. It was a big LGBTQ event. They do this every year. It's hosted randomly throughout the city, all different locations throughout New York City. It's always in New York City. It just where changes. It is very secluded in who gets an invite. It's usually celebrities, people with a lot of money. This is a one-time event every year. It's sought after. It's a big money maker for their foundation. They go all out. They completely cleared out the shipyard. They had set up 3 separate stages. There's going to be 3 main headliners. It was going to be highly publicized, so celebs would get the coverage of being there to support the communities that they support. And it was going to be a big televised event, but more so on the online community than TV. So the police were thrown through a loop a little bit with this one because the invites do go out 24 hours before and usually by a text message, and it's completely random in how they send it every year so that nobody can really figure out how to hack their way into the event. Some year you get a literal invitation delivered to either your business or your home. Sometimes it's an electronic thing. Sometimes it's food like a display. Sometimes it's very cryptic and they send you on a little bit of a scavenger hunt and you have to find certain objects. Like every year is different so that nobody can suspect or anticipate their way in. So although it was good that they had an exclusive list, it still left them with the whodunit and why. So of course we need to talk about the unfortunate victim of this event. We had Harper Henson, the beloved science teacher. Again, when this all happened, we were surprised. I think everybody jumped on board very quickly, believing that this was a hate crime. There was definitely enough evidence to support that. And a lot of the police and investigators openly stated that they were leaning that way, that the way the body had been, of course we all know, unfortunately she was found in the river without her head. Her head has never been found to this day. We don't know what happened to it. But of course there was enough, we had fingerprints and we had enough way. They wanted to make it a little bit difficult to find out who the body was, but there were other things that they did to mark the body that were never discussed in the community or in public, because the police feared a rise up of riots within the LGBTQ community. But during the trial, the truth came out, and of course us limited reporters who were able to sit through were able to hear the full, what they really found that day from what we actually were reporting on or able to report on at the time. So Harper Henson and her wife Tara Henson are seen arriving at the party within the first half hour. The party began, or the event I should say, began at 8 p.m. They arrived by 8:30. The valet checked their ticket at 8:15. So they would have been in the midst of coming into the event by 8:30. So they did track their movements. They had photo booths that printed out photos of who was in there, but it being a public event and big charity event with celebrities, and they did have a little bit shady motives there. They kept a hard drive of every picture that was taken. So the police were able to go through and they saw them 3 separate times in 3 separate machines throughout the party, placing them there till at least about midnight. They did pick up their food. Everything was pre-selected for them, which was weird about the events. You not only got the event 24 hours before, but your food choice was also the mystery. They're known to serve you, and you go up and and your food's revealed, and usually everybody says it's food they really enjoy, they did their research. It's usually their favorite type of food or a food they feel like they should try. They take time in investing in who is coming to these events. They want them to spend money, so they're kissing their ass pretty much. So Tara and Harper Henson were there for a good majority of time. Their friends that attended the party, there was no reason to suspect anything. They were laughing, having a good time. They were excited to have even been invited to the event. It was rather curious how a science teacher and a local paranormal investigator had gotten in the door, but through the court process, a little bit of that was explained. Again, this is going to be rather shocking because this is news we have not heard and was not released during the time because they feared riots. The one detail about Harper Henson that was kept exclusively with the police, not only just the investigators and the police, but her own wife, Tara Henson, did not know this part of the story through the majority of the investigation, because they always put the spouse in as a suspect, because majority of the time, and when bodies are found like this, desecrated in the way she was, it's usually a crime of passion connected to someone who loves you. So, although they didn't have really any or much evidence on Tara, which we'll get into, they had enough to suspect her. So Harper was found pregnant, which is very mysterious because she's married to a woman, and they had asked Tara if they were, doing any in vitro, or if they were talking about having kids, which Tara, I think, put her on to the fact that something was suspicious, but Tara confirmed and still confirms in the court that they had no plans to have children. They weren't doing in vitro. that Harper didn't want to have kids. She was more focused on her career. She wanted to write an environmental book for children, and Tara was like trying to grow her investigation route, and they were just like really thrown into work. Like Tara would work most nights, and Harper worked most days, and they barely saw each other, not out of like not lack of love situation, but there was a little bit of a rift in the relationship, which is bringing me into the details connecting why the police connected Alfonso Santiago. We will get into Alfonso, but why the police attached Tara to Alfonso and Harper, and perhaps why Harper and Tara were even invited to the event at all. We all know Alfonso, or Fonzie as most of you know him. Sorry about that, folks. Experiencing technical difficulties. I'm back. Okay, so how come Harper Henson, a middle class science teacher, they lived in a modest home, didn't bring in much money with the paranormal investigating, to be honest. So Harper was the main breadwinner, being the full-time job. But, Tara brought in money with her paranormal research. She also did her own side hustle on YouTube doing tarot card readings, and she also did palm readings at festivals around. Like, she found ways to make money, but it was Harper who was the stable one, Tara the more flighty artistic one. Why were these two invited to such an exclusive event? Harper was involved the year before in rebuilding an area of the city for people to have a community garden, and within that community she made some friends through the mayor's office. Mayor Monroe, also another big suspect in all of this, and was also very present in the trial. So Harper has a connection to the mayor's office. She did meet the mayor several times. So the police were initially suspect that maybe the baby was on an affair with the mayor's office, with the mayor, because there was questionable photos found of the mayor and Harper at an event, with his arm. Nothing that could be proven. It could be a friendly hug, it could be a love hug, but it was enough to be like, well, she's pregnant, and obviously the wife, Tara, doesn't know about it, so she has to be having an affair with somebody. So Mayor Monroe was put on the docket for possible baby daddy. So they dug into that connection, but there wasn't really much to go on other than a few events that they had worked on. There was never any hotel receipts or any footage of them together. However, in their digging through the hotels, they did find on several occasions Harper Henson walking into a very exclusive hotel, which we all know as the Plaza, something a science teacher wouldn't be able to afford on an average Monday or Wednesday a couple times a week. She walked in alone about 20 to 30 minutes every time after her arrival in these hotels. Alfonso Santiago is seen going into the Plaza or whatever. It wasn't always at the Plaza. Majority of the meets were at the Plaza, but they did move around to exclusive hotels. They were never seen going in or out together. However, being the police, they can find out if, in fact, Alfonso is seen going into the same room or who's paying the bill. This is where they dig in. So, of course, Alfonso is footing the bill because Harper can't afford it. She's a science teacher. They are usually in and out within a 3-hour period. They were never in there overnight. They're never coming out to wrinkled clothing. It's not sure if it's not clear whether it's a sexual connection, but why else go into a hotel room for 3 hours at a time. But the police were like, well, maybe she was in on the mob activity. Maybe she did something for them. She was a scientist before she was a science teacher. Maybe she was helping them, forge some documents so that they could develop some land somewhere. This is Alfonso, and we all know him, but we'll get into his story in a minute. But so we have this love baby. And the police are, is it Mayor Monroe? Is it Alfonso Santiago's? Because there's no other male connection that they can attach her to. They went through all of her community, through the LGBTQ, questioning them individually. They never saw Harper with any man or other women. She never talked about any trouble in her home. They all suspected that Harper and Tara were very close, very tight. Like everybody's it couple. They would be shocked if there was an affair, but everyone is going to be quite shocked, especially my jaw hit the floor when I heard about her being pregnant, but that's just the beginning of what we weren't able to understand about Harper. Not only was Harper found without her head, her breasts were completely cut off. All of her toes were removed, but her fingers were attached, so they clearly wanted her to be identified. None of her teeth were removed. There was no sign of struggle. There was no bruising. She was almost like polished, like a wax. There was like a weird oil on her skin. Wanted to look like a mermaid, scally. They took time with this body, is what I'm saying. Not only dismembering her, they were delivering a message. So, of course, at this point, they're like, it's a crime, a hate crime against LGBTQ because of the event. She was found outside, right out front in the morning, like where everybody was driving home from the night. Of course, they wouldn't have been able to see her in the pitch black, but, as they're taking the stage down, it didn't take long to find her body. Like, they clearly wanted her found. They clearly wanted her displayed. They wanted a buzz, and this was the beginning of the buzz, and where we all started questioning if we had a possible outbreak of hate crimes, if this was a singular attack, because before that day, the world didn't know who Tara Hansen or Harper Hansen were, and nobody really knew about the connection to Mayor Monroe or Alfonso Santiago. So here we are, a headless. All we really knew about Harper was she was a beloved science teacher. Everybody was shocked. She was open lesbian, open LGBTQ. She loved her family, like very responsible. We were shocked. And to be headless, that's horrific. But I feel like the police did the right thing, because just finding out she was headless, the LGBTQ that she was involved with, they loved her, they beloved her, so of course they rose up. If they had known the truth, I think that perhaps the prosecution wouldn't have had so much backing to put whodunit away, which we will get to. So not only do we have this shocking bomb, and like I said, Tara Hansen was questioned, or at least listed as a suspect for one time. Did Tara know about an affair? Is she saving face? Did she know about the baby? Did Harper tell her? Was this... Because after they're seen leaving the party, Tara explained to the police that they went home, they were in bed, they had made love, everything was fine, she went to sleep. She heard Harper get up around 3 a.m, assuming she was going to the bathroom or, going to get a drink. She said she didn't remember feeling her get into bed. She woke up in the morning, Harper wasn't there. She made coffee thinking Harper had gotten up and went on her run because she was a runner. She was known to get up at dawn and run, so it wasn't like a panic thing when she wasn't there. Tara said she started making breakfast like normal, and that's when the cop showed up and told her that her wife had been found, and she can't explain how Harper got from home back to the party. So that's a little suspicious for all of us. Clearly, if I was a police officer, I would be like, okay, well, you're seeing your wife Harper is last seen leaving the party with you, and her body is found less than like 7 feet from where you're last seen in the cameras. I think you'd done it too. So, of course, they're digging into Tara. They're digging into the marriage. They're watching Tara. They want to see if she slips up, if she does know more than she's letting on. But weeks go by, leaning more towards winter, the holiday season. They really don't have much on Tara. She is genuinely grieving. She's outraged. She's in the police station every week demanding answers. She's holding vigils in the city. So they're like, well, we have to look into other possibilities, and we need to find out if they have a connection to anyone, if they have any enemies. And in doing that, like I said, they found the connection. The only possible affair, in my opinion and in the court's opinion, was Alfonso Santiago was the father of the baby. And of course, I'm going to reveal that later. Let's move into the holiday season because we need to understand the story as it was happening. So we have the first body, Harper Henson. She was found in mid-September of 2021. Moving into early December, we have a charity hosted every year by the mayor. It's for poor families who need Christmas presents for their kids or meals, and whatever is left over from the Christmas season goes into the food bank to feed other families. So they're raising money for good cause. It's multiple causes, but it's for kids and poor families. It's like a big Christmas party and Rockefeller Center. Again, it's very exclusive. They want wealthy people that are going to shell out some big bucks. It's a sought after annual event that shifts around the city. So now we are getting a pattern, just like the first murder of Harper. It was an annual event, very exclusive, sought after, moved around. Nobody really knew where it was. How are these murders being planned? How are they being undertaken with such little, to go on? So of course at this point, we have the mayor's event, his whole family, all of his friends, they're all photographed. The family is there all the way until the end. Mayor Monroe and his wife, I think they left about 40 minutes before the event actually ended. His eldest child, his daughter, and her husband left about an hour before. They have a new baby. Makes sense. She's got to go home and feed the baby. She kissed everyone goodbye. Unfortunately, she didn't know what was going to go down. Mayor Monroe said on his way out the door, he had hugged and kissed his son. Daniel thanked him for coming in his nice speech, and his wife Claire was there, and they were on their way out too. Claire had to use the restroom. Like Harper, Claire is also newly pregnant, not showing just yet. So again, we have another pattern. We have a love situation with a baby at an annual charity event. So the cops aren't sold at this point that the first murder of Harper Henson is an LGBTQ hate crime, but they're not letting us, the public, know, or other reporters know. They need something solid because it still can be a hate crime at this point. These could be two detached things. Somebody could be trying to like repeat, copycat. So of course they have to dig into what we're calling the Christmas lovers. Unfortunately, we all know Mayor Monroe's son, Daniel Monroe, and his wife, Claire Monroe, were found. And just Dawn, like the first body, Harper Henson, who was a singular kill. These two, the event was held at, unlike the event in the first killing, although it is always in New York, this event actually took place in upstate New York in a big rented cabin Airbnb mansion. It was very exclusive. They rented it for the weekend. They had 2 nights of different guest lists to get more investors. So the first night was Friday. It went successful. Nothing happened. So this is Saturday. Everybody would be tired. They had just wrapped it up. Their event that was very successful. They ended up making more money than they did the year before. They're just continually to break records. So they're happy, but they're exhausted. So Mayor Monroe and his wife said Daniel was just waiting for Claire to come back. And that was the last anyone had seen them. Mayor Monroe and his wife are seen on the cameras going out. And Daniel, about maybe 10, 15 minutes later, Daniel and Claire are seen leaving. And there's no solid, just like how Harper got from home, supposedly from home, to the river at the event, Daniel and Claire's car was parked in their driveway at their home. Their security reported, because at these events they have, being the mayor's son, they have security detail home. They don't necessarily go in and check the house. They just they escort them home. So the police said that they pulled in, they parked, waved, went in the house, but their bodies are found at the Airbnb cabin right along the tree line in the backyard. So it's just enough, like their bodies were half in the woods and their legs were out in the grass so that they could be seen. The object was for them to be found. But these were lovers that were staged in a very loving way. They weren't really marked up that much. In the official statement, which we did know, the hand was placed, the husband's hand, Daniel's hand, was placed on Claire's belly as if, to be exposing the fact that they were expecting a child. But the difference in between the two killings is what tripped the police up, because you have somebody who is clearly horrifically treating Harper, cutting her breasts off, cutting her head off, cutting her toes off, just doing horrible stuff, and then you have somebody who seemed to want to marbleize and glamorize like they weren't marred, they were poisoned, which is even more curious. So they have no blunt force traumas, no shot wounds, no stabbed wounds. They had poison, something they consumed, which ended up being arsenic. And inside the house, the only bit of evidence was the little bit of wine in one of the glass. There was no bottle found of wine. There was no fingerprints or nothing, but there was just enough to test. Okay, they ingested the arsenic through wine, clearly, but where did the wine come from? What kind of wine was it? They had to jump through all these hoops. So somebody's clearly playing with the police at this point, and at this point they are convinced that they have a serial killer on their hands. But of course, at this point everybody's wound up, riled up. We got 2 murders, 2 big charity events. This is highly publicized. This is the elite community that aren't going to be quiet about it. They're going to demand things. The press has been reporting on it. why were these wonderful people killed? You know, they just had this big public wedding she was expecting. Like, what could they have done? So they start digging into Daniel Monroe. Maybe he had an affair, like the Harper Tara situation, or maybe Claire was having an affair. So they start digging into Claire and Daniel, and not much is found on Daniel. Squeaky clean, seemingly. Was in line to follow his father's footsteps. You know, he worked for his father. He had helped him get elected through the campaign. It was openly known that his dad was going to go be a president one day, and he was going to follow in his footsteps, be, you know, governor or mayor. Like, he was going into politics. Mayor Monroe and his son were very close. It's very well known that Mayor Monroe and Alfonso Santiago have a lot of controversy and a lot of conflict, with Mayor Monroe being in charge of the city and, you know, trying to put his foot down on corruption. And then you have Alfonso Santiago, who, you know, despite everyone's best efforts, they can't really, and everybody knows he's a made man. You can't really prove any of his activities. He's kind of phenomenally good at crime, clearly. So you have Mayor Monroe, who's completely frustrated. You got the biggest criminal just buying up the best pieces of property and investing their blood money into the city, and it's not a good look for Mayor Monroe. People are like, you're trying to stop corruption, but you have Alfonso Santiago out here every day in our faces, buying up property, you know, making the cost of living in the area too high for us, pushing locals out. So at this point, the police are thinking this was actually an attack on Mayor Monroe, because 2 months prior to this event, Mayor Monroe had kicked off that whole "we're cracking down on organized crime," and he was in the public, "I'm not afraid of Alfonso Santiago, da 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 da." So at this point, the police are like, okay, this is retaliation, clearly. So they're looking at Alfonso for a hate crime towards the LGBTQ for killing Harper, and they're looking at Alfonso for a hate crime for killing Daniel and Claire to get back at Mayor Monroe by hurting him in the heart space, by taking his pride and joy and his future, you know, his protege away from him, and his young bride and his first grandkid. You know, it was unfortunate casualties, and that's why the police believe that he didn't really, or at this point they're believing Alfonso did it. I think Mayor Monroe isn't much of a suspect after this point, with his own children being found, but, you know, he's not ruled out at this point, because during their investigation trying to connect Daniel or Claire in any way to Alfonso, they did notice that there was money missing several times from Daniel's ledger. He had a little bit of a taking petty cash problem to support his gambling habit. He didn't want his new bride to know about that, or the family to know about that. The police, of course, questioned Mayor Monroe at this point, and he openly said, yes, you know, I have a son with a gambling addiction, and I admit that I had, you know, paid the cash back and just brushed it under the rug because I didn't want his name to be tarnished. I didn't want it to get out in the press and make me look bad. So he kind of like let his son continue to steal and then would just put his own money into it. So the cops are like, well, if he's putting his own money into it, at some point, is he getting pissed about this? Like, is he getting sick of cleaning up his son's mess? Is his son being messy other areas that might cause harm to his presidency? So they're digging in, and come to find out, in his college days, Daniel, not just once, not just twice, not just 3 times, but on 4 separate occasions, was charged with rape within his first 2 years at his fraternity at college. Again, Daddy Dearest had come in and paid off the women who had come forward and said that Daniel, they got drunk. He got a little handsy, got a little pushy. They said no, he didn't stop. Mayor Monroe to this day won't comment on it, won't talk about it, says it's nonsense, but there is proof, there is documentation that there was police reports filed, but then they never went anywhere with it. We can't prove if my cats are only I never had cats that they're fighting today. I don't know what they're doing. Sorry. I need a studio so bad without pets. So we have Mayor Monroe with a son who gambles, with a son who is a possible rapist. And of course we're digging into it further with the police. Just for shits and giggles. Let's test the baby, the police said. Let's make sure that this is Daniel's baby. And the plot thickens. Because, although the DNA is very strong, just on a hunch, why this lab technician would have thought to do this, it was like a twist of fate. Somebody pulling a string from above. But just on a whim, Mayor Monroe's DNA had been in the system because he implemented the system when he was a governor, and he agreed to be the first person to do it, and it was like a public televised thing. So he gave his blood DNA, his fingerprints, all that good stuff. So just out of curiosity, they matched Claire's baby with Daniel's DNA and with Mayor Monroe's DNA. Daniel's results were 97.6% the father of the baby, and Mayor Monroe, his results were 99.2% the father. So here we have this whole wrench in the mix. What? Is it because their father and son, are the DNAs just too close? Because that is a possibility that was discussed during the trial. That because that is the grandfather of the child, it would still show a connection in DNA. But, of course, the prosecution argued, but why was it a higher percentage than his own son? So, of course, it played out in court that they ended up ruling that the baby was, in fact, Mayor Monroe's child, which he will be issuing a statement on, I'm sure, shortly. He's going to have to. It's, not only on my channel, but everyone who was able to go through this process allowed in our contracts up. We can speak now. So at some point we're going to be hearing from Mayor Monroe on his relationship with Claire, but all we have to go on is what is discussed in the actual courtroom when Mayor Monroe refused to go on record with a lot of stuff, and he refused to testify until he was forced to. About Claire specifically and the baby, the judge really pushed. She wanted a clear answer because that would be motive. That would be motive for somebody to hurt someone, especially if that was your own son. So, of course, Mayor Monroe comes to the stand, and in the courtroom he openly admits that he had been sleeping with Claire before the wedding. Claire, she never worked a day in her life. She was from a wealthy family. It was two very powerful families coming together, like their family. Her family wasn't in politics, but they always, they were old tobacco money. They always supported politics. They supported, his father's family, so that's like a connection. He watched Claire grow up. There is a connection that Claire and Mayor Monroe actually started having a relationship when she was still underage, when she was volunteering in his office in high school. There were some questionable reports or red flags issued about the inappropriate things they were seeing around the office with a young teen girl, which who else would it be? So did Claire end up telling Mayor Monroe that she was going to tell Daniel and his wife, and maybe she wanted to be with him, or maybe Mayor Monroe was like, you need to tell them that this is my baby? Was he love crazy? Is he in on this? But then we have to look at the Alfonso stuff too. Like, Alfonso is a known enemy of Mayor Monroe. Is he framing Mayor Monroe for this, making him look like the murderer? So the plot thickens at this point during the Christmas season. We're gearing into the last part of the charity season here in the city. They do stuff during the summer, but a lot of people flee the city in the summer, so there's not much going on for big annual events other than 4th of July. So the last closeout season is spring, bringing us into the last murder of Jeffrey Reed, the headlining public speaker to this big spirit. It's like the Comic-Con for spiritual people, like sound baths, crystals, herbs, Wiccan stuff. People come from all over the world to showcase, new ways to ghost hunt, new ways to connect with spirits, new ways to be zen, new ways to heal. It's like a sharing experience. Again, very exclusive. People that have to be successful, top of their field, not necessarily wealthy, but they're raising money to keep, researching, I guess, holistic ways of treating things and promoting small shops. It's like a big thing. Again, it does stay in New York. It moves around. This year, it happened to be in New York City. Where else other than the most famous library in the city? It was again a private event, not so much like a gala or a ball. He was just going to come speak. There was a couple other speakers there talking about their top-notch field. But Jeffrey Reed was like the sought-after person. Like, he has 5 or 6 books out. We all heard, his speeches growing up. But he's a pretty well-known guy. However, he hasn't really written much in the last few years. People were excited because he, at this event, had stated that he's writing a new book and it was going to go in a different direction, away from the spirituality. It was a different kind of book, and everyone was like, whoa, that's interesting. And then the next morning, he is found outside the library, I wouldn't call it the back steps, because this is New York City. There's no real, back stoop sometimes, but it was like an alley between 2 buildings, and there was a set of stairs that you come down in the trash. And so Jeffrey Reed's body was found in front of the dumpsters at the bottom of the stairs, again, posed. Unlike the lovers, it wasn't very nice, but it wasn't as horrific as Harper. So looking into the reports at the time when this first happened, all we knew about Jeffrey is that he was found gagged and bound, and it seemed to be like a rough sex, gay experience gone wrong. And, of course, Jeffrey Reed had a family. He wasn't known to be gay, so it was like, oh my God, shocking. Is he in this underground sex scene? There were clues on his body that maybe he had been to some kind of sex party or whatever. But what we did not know, there was more details to his body, just like there was to Harper's, and just like Harper, they were afraid of riots. But in the courtroom, what actually happened to Jeffrey Reed was exposed. He did have his head, unlike Harper, but he did not have any fingers or toes. He had pretty astronomically large toy rammed in his mouth and his anus. But it was found that that was something that happened after death. There was a blunt force trauma on the back of the head, which could have been a fall or a hit. And it was made to look like he just fell, and then somebody tampered with the body, but clearly he was whacked from behind, fell down the stairs because he did have some bruising and some marks that were indicative of falling down the stairs, and he probably took his last breath there. And then either they were trying to make it look like another hate crime, or they were just, trying to baffle the police. Nobody's still to this day really sure why Jeffrey was positioned that way. Was it a mockery because he was a spiritual person? Is this somebody who's anti-Semitic trying to disrespect the spiritual community? Everybody in the spiritual community at this point is in an uproar. So now we have 3 murders, 3 big events, and the police, at this point, they're like, okay, we have a serial killer. Okay, we have 2 main suspects and questionable suspects, because at this point, Tara Henson is still a suspect. Does she know about her wife's love baby and all that? We don't know. At this point, she's still on the board. But you have Alfonso Santiago as suspect number 1, Mayor Monroe as suspect number 2, Tara Henson as suspect number 3, and bringing in our last big heavy hitter, who just started coming into the story around Jeffrey's death, was the infamous Lola Peters, the shrink counselor to Alfonso Santiago, the one woman that the true crime boss let in on all their dirty secrets. She was also a counselor to Mayor Monroe and his wife during all of this. And before the beginning, it happened during summer. Some cheating allegation had pushed Mrs. Monroe, Mayor Monroe's wife, to insinuate that they needed to go into marriage counseling. So from about June on record until all the way through all of this mess, about April, or around Easter time, Mayor Monroe and his wife twice a week had been going to see Dr. Peters at her office. And on record, from probably, my memory is hazy, but I want to say, so Mayor Monroe, I think he started a month after Mayor Monroe, but on record, Alfonso Santiago had been going to Dr. Peters' office almost the same amount of time as Mayor Monroe and his wife. So the police are like, you have Lola Peters, who knows all the dirty little secrets to the mastermind crime lord, and then all the dirty little secrets of the mayor and his wife and their family. Could she be swapping deets? Did she work with the mayor to trap Alfonso in some way? Are they framing him to get him out of the way so that the mayor's campaign can go better? Or is Lola Peters, Dr. Peters, not as sweet as everybody thinks she is, and perhaps is actually on the underground books for Alfonso Santiago? Does he pay her cash for information about the mayor because they, Lola, Dr. Peters, has their session with the mayor and then has her session almost sometimes in the same day as Alfonso? Is he paying her for information? He is a mob lord. So, of course, at this point, the police are digging in. Is Lola Peters involved? Does she know more than she's letting on? Of course, she's a shrink. She's not required to discuss what she talks about. However, when somebody is in a questionable crime situation, she can be forced to testify, and that's basically what happened. So she goes into the courtroom, and this is all hush hush. We didn't know much about Lola Peters through all this. A lot of people suspected her. They didn't like the fact that she was representing the mayor and his wife and Alfonso. Some people said they're all in on it, that Alfonso actually pays the mayor and that the beef is fake. There was so much going on during this time. Everybody was scared to have events. Security was beefed up at every elaborate event all year round. People were just scared to wake up the next day and be like, oh my God, please don't let a body be found and don't attach bad press to my charity. It's like a whole thing, stress, anxiety. And the investigation is going, and the police are getting all of these pressure because you got 4 murders now, and it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Everybody clearly thinks it's Alfonso, even the public. So at this point, the police need to make an arrest. We're moving into May. It's a month after Jeffrey Reed's body has found, several months since the Claire and Daniel's body, and several months more since Harper's body. Everybody's fed up. They want to put this away. The funerals have happened. The visuals are happening. People are starting to not really want to talk about it anymore. It's harshing their mellow. So the police is like, all right, we need to, get this rolling. So they arrest Alfonso and they arrest Mayor Monroe, which is shocking to everyone because although we knew Mayor Monroe was a suspect, we didn't really know there was enough on him to make an arrest. And of course, there was plenty on him because he was the father of Claire's baby. And then you have Alfonso, who is the suspected father of Harper's baby. But this is where things get twisted. On a hunch, the same technician who tested Claire's baby went back and looked at the people who had tested Harper's baby. They found out that the people, the lab or whatever process it went through, that had done it worked, or I wouldn't say worked for, but were sponsored or funded by one of the mayor's companies. So the police were like, okay, well, Mayor Monroe had been warned that, a DNA sample was under process for Harper's baby. Maybe he switched the sample with Alfonso. So she tested, this lab technician went back and tested Harper Henson's baby. And she not only tested it with Mayor Monroe's DNA, but she tested Claire's baby's DNA with Harper's baby's DNA to see if there was any sibling gene. This lady is genius. I hope she got a promotion. But anyway, her work paid off because not only did it expose that once again Mayor Monroe was 99% the father, there was a strong enough sibling tie to prove that both babies had the same DNA. So Claire's baby could not have been Daniel's baby because Daniel's baby would not have been I don't know how to explain it, but Daniel's baby would not have been enough to show that they were siblings as well as if Mayor Monroe fathered Claire's baby and also fathered Harper's baby. So you have the big dun 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 by the police. The mayor has 2 baby scandals, 2 affairs that could sideline his presidency. Then you have Alfonso, the biggest pain of his ass, was making him look bad, making him look like he can't control his own city. 2 birds, 1 stone. Pin it on Alfonso, take out the 2 women that are pregnant, and they take out the secrets they carry. But why so horrible to Harper's body? Why stage Claire and Daniel like that? If he loved Claire, and that would prove that it was his son. You wouldn't want to bash in your own son's brain, so poison makes sense. Staging them as if in a loving way, like, I'm sorry, you guys, I just, can't let my secret out. Like, I love you, Claire, but I love being a president more, and I love you, Daniel, you're my son and all, but I'm the breadwinner, This is what's going on in court and being discussed. Did Mayor Monroe, is that why the two bodies were pristine and the rest were horrific? Why so violent against Harper? And why attack Jeffrey Reed? So they're like, the answer has to lie with Jeffrey Reed. If they can find a tie to Jeffrey Reed and Mayor Monroe, then Mayor Monroe would be tied to all three deaths. Alfonso is tied to Harper's death because of the hotel rooms. But perhaps what we thought was a sexual encounter was Harper trying to go to Alfonso for help, maybe to, get rid of the baby, or maybe she wanted away from Mayor Monroe. Maybe she was taking money from Alfonso to give dirt about Mayor Monroe because she had a baby coming. I don't know what the scenario was, and nobody does. It was all pretty much hearsay until this is going to be a rather shocking truth bomb as well, because we have the two love babies. But let's dig into Jeffrey Reed. Okay, Jeffrey Reed came up in fame in his late 20s was when he wrote his first book. He became this big spiritual guru, and he met his wife at 30, and they went on this whole they're like the it couple. She unfortunately passed away a year before Jeffrey Reed of breast cancer. She battled it for 2 years. She had a lot of public support. We all loved her. We all supported Jeffrey. But come to find out, Jeffrey has some dirty little secrets in his closet too. And a lot like Tara, he wasn't always aware of them. So looking back into the past, Jeffrey, during the investigation, they're questioning his family about at this point they're like, okay, so everything is sexual based. So is Mayor Monroe sleeping with Claire, Harper, and Jeffrey? Is there some kind of sexual connection? Is that why there was sex toys found? Is that the direction they were trying to paint? Was Mayor Monroe subconsciously coming out as gay in his killings? Like, they didn't really have much to tie Jeffrey to. They were just kind of grasping at straws until they decided to test. I don't think it was the same lab technician, but it was one of the detectives that noticed that Daniel, Mayor Monroe's son, resembled Jeffrey's son. And Daniel and Jeffrey's son are about a year apart. Daniel is older. So, on a coincidence, they, being investigators, they followed Jeffrey's son, which is choosing to stay anonymous. His name is staying anonymous. Even through the court process, he's not really listed. He doesn't have much to do with the story other than this part. Anyway, they took a soda can from Jeffrey Reed's son, and they took the evidence from Daniel Monroe, and turns out that they were actually siblings as well. So then, of course, Jeffrey Reed had a son and a daughter. They tested the daughter. The daughter was actually Mayor Monroe's child too. And then, going back into the forensics part of it, the examiner discovered that Jeffrey Reed was somebody who would never have been able to have children. He was sterile from a young age. So did Jeffrey know that Mayor Monroe had fathered their children? Was this an agreement that they made back in the day? So they dug deeper. They discovered that Jeffrey Reed and Mayor Monroe, at this point in time, early 30s, Mayor Monroe was just starting to come up too. They were actually friends. Jeffrey Reed had money, he was successful. Mayor Monroe needed funding and backing, and Jeffrey gave him a lot of money in his first 2 years of really trying to campaign hard. After that, there wasn't much of a friendship. That's why they missed it initially at first. So, red flag. Jeffrey Reed and Marilyn Monroe were friends. Their wives were also friends. Marilyn Monroe's wife attended Jeffrey Reed's wife's funeral and was emotional, and she spoke. So this was a couple that during those baby making years were commingling. So the police put it together. Marilyn Monroe was having an affair with Jeffrey Reed's wife, which she clearly took to the grave about her own children. We don't know if Jeffrey knew if he was sterile. We don't know that. He is unfortunately a deceased person, and so was his wife. However, his children were rather surprised to find out that their father was actually Marilyn Monroe. They remember vaguely because they were young, like having barbecues and their parents being friends. But they were shocked. It wasn't something that they knew, and the other family members and their families didn't know either. So I'm assuming, and the courts and the attorneys are assuming at this point that, this is just a pattern. He gets people pregnant, he has affairs with them, and why after all these years kill Jeffrey? The wife is gone, the secret's kept. Did Jeffrey find out? Did Jeffrey threaten Marilyn Monroe? Was he going to expose this whole baby scenario? Did Jeffrey find out that Claire was pregnant with his baby and Harper was pregnant with his baby? And was he going to expose the whole shebang? Does this all actually start with Jeffrey? Because maybe perhaps he found out that his kids weren't his and that his wife and his supposed friend, why did they stop being friends? Why were they so close and then all of a sudden fell off? Was it Jeffrey's wife that was like, I don't want you anymore, I want my husband and my kids, and that's why? Or was it because Jeffrey knew all along and was finally at a point where he was desperate? And, his career flopped. He didn't have much money anymore. I wouldn't say flopped. He was successful. He was a headliner, but he hadn't published anything good in a long time. And he needed money. He was getting up there. Perhaps he was blackmailing, and that's what they discussed in court as well. And there was a few angry phone calls of Jeffrey Reed saying that that Marilyn Monroe owed him, that he was going to tell the truth, that he was going to expose him. So this is the final connect. Marilyn Monroe has 3 connections to 3 crimes. 4 crimes. We're counting 3 because they're events, even though they were found together, Claire and Daniel. So we have Marilyn Monroe, who turns out to be the sex-crazed, I want to impregnate the planet type guy. Because at this point, he's either just very sloppy and very stupid, or this is his intention. It's just to populate these babies. And maybe he got cocky because with Jeffrey and his wife, he was able to get away with it. The kids grew up, they didn't know. Maybe he figured Claire would keep the secret and let Daniel believe that it was his child. Maybe Harper would just, have it and say, hey, let's go get in vitro or whatever. Maybe he just thought that they would cover up their own tracks. And maybe he had a thing about ego and having babies on this earth. We don't really know. Marilyn Monroe wouldn't ever... He's a very intelligent man. He's not going to say more than they have proof for. He did admit to the affair of Claire. He did admit to sleeping with Harper. He did admit he didn't know why that Alfonso and Harper were seen at the hotel together. But this is where we're getting into Alfonso Santiago, the one everybody initially thought, who done it? Alfonso done it. Everybody, through this whole thing, we all expected him to get the verdict. And maybe you're still right because the story isn't over. Let's look into Alfonso like the police looked into Alfonso. With his connection to Harper, of course, going into the hotel, they couldn't let it go there. They offered a money award. They ended up finding out that, in fact, Harper had gone to Alfonso for protection. She was getting blackmailed by Mayor Monroe. She wanted to abort the pregnancy. She didn't want her wife Tara to find out about it. She had, like Tara had stated, no intention of being a mother. So 2 days before the charity event, Harper Henson, had gone to Mayor Monroe and said, I'm getting an abortion. I'm ending this affair. I'm being faithful to my wife. And this is all coming from Alfonso and their discussions in the hotel room. He admits that he had paid her for information on the LGBTQ community, but it wasn't out of hate. It was he had bought up some properties in a popular gay bar area, and he really wanted to get in on the scene. He wanted to make a club. They were collaborating. Although she was a science teacher, she was very active in the LGBTQ community. She was known to help people with events, so that wouldn't have been something that was a stretch. Alfonso said at no point did they have any sexual activity. They developed a friendship, which is why they kept meeting even after, the planning was done. And that's when she had confided in him, and he agreed to pay for her abortion. He agreed to make sure no one knew about it, and he agreed to help keep the mayor off her ass. And then, of course, at the event, Harper is found deceased, but at this point, Alfonso, needing to save his own ass, openly admits that after she had confided in the pregnancy, he left the hotel, and he had sent a threat to Mayor Monroe to back off Harper that same very day. So 2 days before the event, now Mayor Monroe has heat from Alfonso, who knows about the baby, probably got a little bit of blackmail there, was furious that Harper, 1, was gonna kill his baby, and 2, that she went to another man for help, and that's why Alfonso believes her body was treated the way it was and why he displayed her like that. He called her the devil openly. Harper had said, and the details I was sorting through, Alfonso said that she openly said that if she killed the baby, she would be the devil, and that devils deserve to die. So that is an open threat, supposedly. Again, this is hearsay in the courtroom. They're not just going to take a crime lord's word for it, so they dig into it. They were able to find a couple money transfers. Normally, Alfonso deals with cash, but because Harper was helping with a charity event, he kept dumping money into the charity and paying her that way. So there was a paper trail of exchange of money, whether that be sexual favors, it really doesn't matter. It does corroborate Alfonso's story that they were meeting for a business purpose and not a sexual purpose. And again, Harper was pregnant with Mayor Monroe's baby and not Alfonso. So even if they were having an affair, or she was having an affair with both, Alfonso could prove what he was saying. And Mayor Monroe had only been lying at this point. So the court pretty much sided with Alfonso that Mayor Monroe killed Harper out of anger because he was being threatened, because she went to another man. That was all discussed. What one you believe is up to you. But then let's work back into Lola Peters. So they bring in Dr. Peters up at this point, and they're asking if Alfonso ever, in their sessions discussed Harper Henson. And Dr. Peters says yes. started expressing his first real emotion about a first real friendship outside of his crime world. He was excited to have somebody smart as a friend, that he didn't have to talk about, building and business and the crime stuff. That he openly stated that he liked Harper a lot. She felt like a sister, wanted to protect her, and it was weird to him to feel that way for a stranger. So she remembered it in her mind, because in her mind as a doctor, he was learning to become more humanized and become more one with his community. So that corroborated the story that they were just friends, and that he genuinely cared and wanted to help, and she did state that he said that she was paying him for protection. So that all corroborated through Dr. Peters. So let's get into Tara. They brought Tara on the stand, Harper's wife. She's very emotional. She's finding out that Harper and Mayor Monroe had an affair. She's learning as the court's going. This is very difficult for her. They're questioning her if there was any way that she may have suspected or ever saw Mayor Monroe and Harper Henson together, and she said the night of the event, Mayor Monroe had come not to the event. He snuck in, so he was never seen at the event. He didn't want to be seen supporting because of his religious backing. But about an hour before the event, he did show up to shake their hands, and he did give a cash donation. So Mayor Monroe was at attendance at the same event that Harper's body was found, and Alfonso was not. Alfonso never attended that evening. There's no record of him entering the party, going before, going after. There were some of his goons that went, but they were openly gay at the event. Probably not openly gay in Alfonso's world, because he wasn't openly supportive of it. So don't ask, don't tell policy with Alfonso. So they think that his goons were there in secret, that Alfonso didn't know about that. And the police didn't want to get those, Alfonso's a mob boss. He'll kill people. So didn't want to expose his little goons for being gay and having to find their bodies too, perhaps. So Alfonso's connection to Harper Henson was, in the eyes of the court, strictly friendship, strictly paid for protection. There was no motive for him to be. So Harper's murder was dropped. His charges on that aspect were dropped. He did get hit with some blackmail charge or something, because it's Mayor Monroe. He's not gonna take that lightly. So let's move into Claire and Daniel. At this time during the court, his wife is finding out the truth, that Claire was actually pregnant with his baby, and that he was suspected of killing his own son. And this is where his wife turns on him. And she openly admits that she knew about the relationship with Harper, and that she knew about the relationship with Claire, and that she knew about the relationship with Jeffrey's wife. So, scorned wife let the cat out of the bag. She went up. She said that she was home alone the night of the LGBTQ event, the night Harper was killed. She said that Mayor Monroe did not come home until about 6 a.m. when the sun was up. The body was found at 7:15 in the morning. She said he had wet clothes. He put it in the hamper. She thought it was suspicious, so she put it in a Ziploc bag, thinking that she was going to have another affair situation, and she actually turned that into the police, and it did have DNA to Harper. So we, in the courtroom, now have solid proof that has not only Harper's DNA on it, but Marilyn Monroe's DNA and a little bit of the wife's DNA, but she said it was on there because, she picked it up with her hand. She didn't have gloves. And, it wasn't enough to really place her there. She wasn't there at the event. She was home. She was able to show on her security cameras that she was home that whole night, that her husband was not there. She's upset. He killed, her son. That's her son. And at the end of the day, wouldn't you want to take him down too? I think she was pissed about Claire, more focused about her son. She did not attend Claire's funeral. I don't know if that was out of respect and she just didn't want to bring a bunch of controversy, or if she was genuinely upset. But she didn't talk much in the courtroom. She just said what she needed to say. She did go on about Daniel's gambling problem, that it had rooted back since he was 25, that Marilyn Monroe had always been paying off his, student loans. She talks about the rapes in college. She believes, in her personal opinion, as much as she loves her son, that he is very much his father's son, and that he had a problem like her husband. And just like her husband, he got a pat on the wrist and it all brushed under the rug, and she was ashamed. But, then she opened up about the abuse in her home and how she had hid it for years, and she was scared of not only Marilyn Monroe but her son Daniel. They're kind of two peas in a pod. So it turns out Daniel was not such a nice guy. And digging into that, she exposed Daniel had been having an affair with another woman who is remaining anonymous, and he actually fathered a child with her, so she ended up getting a grandchild out of the deal, which was nice for her heart, I'm sure. But it was definitely the same gene pool. Perhaps Marilyn Monroe saw that in some way, wanted to spare his son from becoming a serial killer like him, or it was just jealousy, or he just got sick of cleaning up his messes, or maybe Daniel found out about Claire and confronted. There's no real solid reason why he killed Daniel, because there was something that went down between them that nobody has any evidence about. At the end of the day, she said the night of the party, she had drank a lot, and she remembers saying goodbye to Daniel and getting in the limo, and it was very foggy. She believes, in her opinion, that night she was drugged. She overslept the next morning. She had a big meeting that she had been planning for months. She didn't set her alarm. She always sets her alarm. She's I felt groggy and sick all day. She's there was definite evidence. I can't prove it, but there was definite evidence that I was, put to sleep. And she believes it's because Marilyn Monroe wanted to sneak out and take care of Daniel and Claire and have no recollection of him leaving the house. She was his alibi that night, technically speaking, and she was telling the truth because in her mind, she went to sleep and he was there, not until learning the truth and it all unfolding in her mind, oh my God, that's why I was sick, or oh my God, I didn't set my alarm, and things were clicking into place. So however, it wasn't enough. They needed to find a way to tie the bodies to Marilyn Monroe like they did with Harper. So this is when they start digging in. Of course, the baby's DNA is Marilyn Monroe's. That's enough of a motive. But out of a stroke of luck, after going through things with a fine-tooth comb, trying to look for anything, in the back of Daniel's mouth, they found a little, hair-sized piece of skin. And they pulled it out and they tested it. And sure enough, the DNA matched to Marilyn Monroe. The one piece of evidence that ties him to the murder was found in his own son's mouth. And his wife stated in court that he did have a weird bite mark on his forearm, and she thought it was like one of his sexual tirades with one of his mistresses, not thinking it was Daniel that had bit his. Why would Daniel bite his dad? Oh, maybe because, he was being drugged and all he could maybe move at the time was his mouth or something. We don't know. But that one bite is what nailed his father to the crimes and what got him ultimately the conviction of not only Daniel but Claire. So they were able to tie those two murders to Mayor Monroe. And of course, Jeffrey Reed, Mayor Monroe's wife came forward and said that the two of them remained best friends throughout the years, that Jeffrey Reed, Mrs. Reed's wife, had told her the truth. She had struggled to have children for years, and it was actually Mrs. Monroe who told, weird, but think at the time they are best friends. They're more like sisters than best friends, and she sees a woman who desperately wants to be a mother, desperately trying to be a mother, and keeps, not getting pregnant and crying every month, and she says, you know what? My husband's a whore. Let's stage a whole affair like we don't know about it, just long enough for you to have, get pregnant. And that's exactly what they did. She said she didn't take much for Mrs. Reed to seduce him. She was pregnant the first time. She ended up wanting to have another kid, and they had another fling. It wasn't something that dragged for years. They ended up using Mayor Monroe. Like Mayor Monroe had been using women, which in a weird twist of events was actually kind of cool for women empowerment. Yes, take your power back, ladies. A little twisted, but still at the same time. So to have that confirmed that it was a seduction, that Mrs. Monroe was well aware of it, and so was Mrs. Reed. She also confirmed that Mrs. Reed never told Jeffrey about the truth. She was worried that the babies would be born looking more like their kids, but Mayor Monroe and Jeffrey at the time really, they did look like brothers in their young photos. Once they got older, they looked different, but when they were young, they had very similar features, so I get why they made that agreement. But yeah, they never told him. Jeffrey went to the grave not knowing the truth. So that really deflated the whole thing of Jeffrey blackmailing him. Mrs. Monroe, the mayor's wife, suspected that, with Harper being pregnant and with Claire being pregnant, he feared some kind of connection to the past with his affair with Mrs. Reed, and it all being exposed, that maybe he was just trying to clean up his messes all the way around. And since Mrs. Reed was already deceased, all he had to do was take care of Mr. Reed. And again, this is all theory because they had to find a way to tie Mayor Monroe to Jeffrey Reed's body. So they go back in it like the other bodies, and they're going through. They're not really finding anything. And they decide on a whim, you know what, we're just gonna go and search the Monroe home one more time. So they're going through everything. They get to Mayor Monroe's library. He has a very elaborate library. He collects first edition books. And on one of the bookshelves is a very interesting statue with a very interesting red stain on it. So out of curiosity, the forensics takes it back, and of course it tested positively matched Jeffrey Reed's DNA. Remember what I said? He had a blunt force trauma. So Mayor Monroe waited for him to go outside, or maybe lured him outside in some way and hit him in the back of the head with this object and made it look like he fell and staged it to look like a sex crime. I don't know why he would want to embarrass Jeffrey Reed like that. I think it was more to get the scent off his own trail in case they tried to piece it all together. Or maybe he was trying to stage it like there was a serial killer on the loose. I don't know. We all suspect as he was going to use all this to take Alfonso down. So his intention was probably to make Alfonso look like he had well, that was a friend one day. So that's a little twisted. Again, Mayor Monroe hasn't been very vocal on the why and the what. Maybe he'll write a tell-all when he's on death row. But at the end of the day, Jeffrey Reed's connection to Mayor Monroe was a lot similar to Daniel. It's karmic justice in my mind. So you had Daniel, who had a string of skin and a one solid bite. Jeffrey, I don't know if this was purposely done, if he was just testing fate, but he didn't use gloves on the toys when he was lubing them up. So why would you lube them up anyway if the body was dead? So there's a lot of reasons where the police and the court and everyone was doing this, but at the same time they were able to get solid prints off of it, connecting Jeffrey to Mayor Monroe. So you got Mayor Monroe connected to all three bodies, a long sprue of mistresses with babies popping up out of the woodwork as we speak. There might even be a couple more that pop up by the time you watch this. Lola Peters, Dr. Peters, was suspected to be in cahoots with Alfonso or Mayor Monroe. She did go on trial. She did openly state that Mayor Monroe and Mrs. Monroe were only there to talk about their marriage. They never dug into anything about affairs. And Alfonso was there for his own issues that she never discussed with each other. Alfonso openly admitted and stated that Dr. Peters never discussed Mayor Monroe. Mrs. Monroe, the mayor's wife, matched the same thing. Dr. Peters never discussed Alfonso, didn't even know that he was a patient. And so Dr. Peters was vindicated as well of all of her charges. And so was Alfonso Santiago, the actual criminal, and probably murdered more people than Mayor Monroe at this point, but got yet another pass. And all the world thought this was going to be the one time Alfonso got taken down, but slippery little snake actually didn't have anything to do with it this time. Maybe next time they'll catch Alfonso, but that's a wrap for Mayor Monroe. I know this was rather shocking news, and we're going to dig into it in the days that follow. I just wanted to give you the overview of what happened in the trial and what is going to be hitting you in the face over the next couple days. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you all next time. I'm Lizzie, signing out. Just kidding. Happy Halloween, everyone. I hope you liked it. Bye.